His silhouette filled the glass as the office door swung open. Quiet, unannounced, almost too gentle for the moment it shattered. I was mid-laugh, not because it was funny, not really, just that nervous, strained giggle you let out when something goes too far, but you don't know how to stop it without making it worse. Mark stood there, holding white gardenias. The ones I told him months ago reminded me of my grandmother. That's the kind of man he was. He remembered small things, the kind no one else did. His eyes landed on me, on us, and I saw something in him just stop. My boss, Rick, still had my underwear in his hand. I'd left it in my gym bag earlier. He said something about laundry day, held them up as a joke, and before I could process it, he tossed them on my keyboard like it was nothing. Everyone else had gone home. It was just us in the open plan office, dimmed lights, the two of us finishing up the quarterlies, and now this. Mark didn't say a word. He just looked at me. Then at Rick, then at the flowers in his hands. He placed them on the nearest desk, turned, and walked out like something in his soul had gone dark. It wasn't rage. It was worse. He didn't shout, didn't demand an explanation. He just left me standing there with a smile still frozen on my face, and Rick clearing his throat behind me, slowly realizing what he'd done. If this story hits you even a little, please like the video and hit subscribe. Most people never do, but it really helps us keep sharing these real, raw moments. I called Mark 5 times. He didn't answer. Texted. That wasn't what it looked like. Silence. My stomach twisted into knots. I tried to pretend I believed my own lie, that it was a joke, that Rick was just awkward, unfiltered, old-school corporate nonsense. But that wasn't the whole truth, was it? Because I didn't stop him. I laughed. I let it happen. By morning, I tried again. Thanks for the flowers. So sweet of you. Still nothing. No response. Just the cold, creeping realization that whatever line I thought I hadn't crossed, maybe I had. And deep down, I knew Mark wasn't angry. He was done. He didn't answer my text. Not that morning, not by noon, not even by the time I got home and saw his side of the closet half empty. The hangers were still swinging slightly, as if he'd only just left. But the things that mattered, his watch box, his passport folder, his fireproof safe, were gone. I stood there staring like a fool, still dressed in the same blouse from yesterday, still clinging to the idea that this could be fixed with a conversation and maybe an apology. Something light, a joke even. We used to get past worse, but when I tried to check our joint banking app to see if he'd maybe booked a hotel nearby, something I could use to find him, talk to him, I couldn't get in. Incorrect password. Tried again. Access revoked. I blinked, logged into the shared cloud next. Empty. No photo albums, no taxes. Not even the shared grocery list, just a notice. Access removed by owner. It hit me like cold water. At lunch, I tried to laugh it off with Danny from sales. He's being dramatic. He'll calm down. He's not the storm and slam type. She smirked into her latte. Right, the quiet ones always come back after they've brooded. But something in her tone made my skin crawl, like even she wasn't buying it. I spent the rest of the afternoon distracted, rereading our old threads, vacations, jokes, his little notes he used to leave when I pulled late nights. I scrolled back far enough to see the message where I first told him white gardenias were my favorite, and suddenly my throat burned, because that man had stood in my office with those flowers, saw his wife's boss holding her underwear, and didn't shout or accuse or demand. He just left, not because he was sulking, because he knew what I'd done, and he was already planning for what came next. And I, so smug, so sure, was still pretending this was just a blip, that the foundation hadn't already cracked. But in the silence, I felt it. This wasn't distance. It was separation. And it had already begun. Thursday morning, I wore the same blouse again, not out of laziness, but spite. Mark hated when I reused outfits without washing them. Said it showed I didn't take care of myself. But I didn't care that day. I walked into work with the same half smile I'd forced on my face for 3 days, even as my inbox showed no new messages from him, even as my texts piled up unread. He hadn't come home. The bed remained untouched, pillows just as he left them, no coffee mugs in the sink, no hair in the drain, no sound of the back door at 6:42 a.m. when he always left for the gym. It was like he'd melted out of my life. No explosion, no accusation, just subtraction. That scared me more than yelling ever could. I checked his Instagram, blank profile photo, deleted posts, gone. Facebook, deactivated, even Venmo, quietly gone. Like he'd rolled up the sidewalk of his own life and vanished into the fog. I called his sister. She didn't answer, texted back, "He's okay. Just give him space." That was the moment I realized something deeper had snapped. Not between us, but in him. And somewhere out there he wasn't crying into a beer or sending angry texts or throwing his ring in a river. He was building something. I didn't know until later that while I was sipping my office coffee trying to act normal, Mark was in another part of town meeting an old friend of his, Catherine, someone he used to work with back in his compliance days. She worked at a law firm now, specialized in workplace ethics. They hadn't spoken in years, but she still remembered him as the quiet one who read everything twice. He asked her one question: "What's the legal threshold for hostile workplace misconduct?" She asked him to clarify. He did. He gave her names, scenarios, patterns, dates. And then he handed over a flash drive with a single folder, Office, 7:34 p.m. That was the timestamp, the moment he walked in. Later that day, she directed him to a hotline, not just HR, but the formal whistleblower channel, the kind protected under federal retaliation statutes. He filed the report anonymously, but he didn't have to name himself. Rick's name, my boss, was already a red flag in their system. There had been other whispers. One woman from accounting, a junior analyst who suddenly transferred to another department. Mark didn't fabricate anything. He didn't embellish. He just filled in the blanks. And as I sat at my desk, scrolling through old messages trying to find some version of us to hang on to, a quiet alarm had already started ringing in a boardroom I didn't even know existed, and my name was now attached to it, whether I liked it or not. We went out that Thursday night. Just a quick happy hour, team drinks, casual photos, the usual clinking glasses and forced smiles. I wore my best blouse, the same one I'd worn that night, like some ridiculous effort to prove I wasn't unraveling, that I still had control. Rick picked the place. Of course he did. Some loud bar with sticky floors and even louder music, like noise could drown guilt. I smiled for the group photo, leaned in with the girls from finance, held my drink like a prop, and posted it like I always did. Surviving the storm, felt cheeky, felt strong. I thought it framed me as unbothered, in control. The comments started off light, hearts, fire emojis, a few get it girl replies. Then one slipped in. "Is the storm HR?" I froze, then another. "Y'all ever find those missing documents?" My stomach flipped. That one came from a burner account. No photo, no followers. Just the comment. Sharp, too specific. The likes slowed. People who always engaged. Silent. It was subtle, but I felt it. A shift in tone. Something sour in the background of every laugh. Even the bartender gave me a second look, like he recognized me, like he'd heard something. Rick ordered another round, joked too loudly about cancel culture, called someone from accounting sensitive. No one laughed. Back at home, I refreshed the post compulsively. I knew better, but I couldn't stop. The next morning, I found a message request. No name, no profile photo, just one line. "You laugh off everything. Maybe that's the real problem." I stared at it until my screen dimmed. My hand was shaking when I locked my phone, because they were right. I had laughed. I hadn't just tolerated Rick's little games. I had played along, smiled, smoothed them over, treated the uncomfortable like it was quirky, and the lines he crossed like blurry jokes. And now, the people around me, at work, online, even strangers, weren't laughing anymore. They were watching. And in that cold, silent judgment, I realized something. Rick wasn't the only one on thin ice. I was standing on it too. And the cracks were already spreading beneath my heels. I found the envelope weeks later, after it had all come apart, after HR, after the lawyer, after the headlines had stopped being quiet. But back then, I didn't know Mark was already 5 steps ahead. He'd stayed silent, yes, vanished from our life like dust wiped clean from glass. But silence wasn't surrender. It was construction, quiet, deliberate construction. He'd requested hallway footage from the building's security vendor, claiming a package theft. Smart, harmless. They handed it over without blinking. He wasn't on it long. Just one stretch, 7:33 p.m. to 7:36 p.m., just long enough to watch me lean back in my chair laughing, watch Rick walk up holding something small and pale, see Mark pause at the door, framed in grainy light, frozen for a second like a man catching fire from the inside, then setting down the flowers, then leaving. The timestamp was visible in the corner. You could match it second by second to the security badge log that showed Rick never swiped out that night, never left. And you could see mine, a pattern of late hours, logged only when Rick did the same. That's not all he gathered. There was the email, subject line, LMFAO, from Rick to me, weeks before. Can't believe you left that in your drawer. Lucky for me, I check everything, haha. I'd laughed then too. Sent a yee and a shrug emoji, that was it. But in context, it was damning. Tasteless wasn't the word. It was pattern. It was workplace misconduct wrapped in emojis and silence. And Mark had documented all of it, not for revenge, for defense. Because he knew retaliation was coming. He printed the emails, clipped the badge logs, labeled the security footage. He didn't post it online, didn't run to my employer. He did something worse. He waited. He placed it all in a manila envelope. On the front, in his handwriting, to be opened if they retaliate. It sat in his lawyer's office, dated, sealed. Meanwhile, I still thought I could charm my way through it. Still thought HR was confused, that Rick would talk them down, that a clarifying statement would make this all seem overblown, misinterpreted, one big misunderstanding. But that envelope didn't misunderstand anything. It didn't argue. It didn't accuse. It proved coldly, entirely, quietly. And by the time I realized what was inside it, it was already too late. It was just a square of paper, folded once, no envelope, no header, left on my keyboard like a forgotten receipt. But the words were clean, cold. Please report to HR immediately. No smiley face, no hey can we chat tone, just a summons. My hands went numb. I looked around the bullpen. No one met my eyes. Even Danny, who usually mouthed good luck before meetings, was hunched over her screen, jaw tight, like she already knew. I opened Slack on my phone to check if I'd missed something. Maybe they'd sent a heads up, but my access was suspended. Slack, email, even the building app that opened the back elevator. I picked up my phone and did the one thing I hadn't done in days. I texted Mark. What did you do? No answer. No three little dots. No read receipt. Nothing. I stared at the screen, willing something, anything to respond, but the silence was a wall now. Thick, immovable. HR was 2 floors up. The elevator ride felt like a coffin lowering. My stomach churned the entire way. I stepped off and turned the corner. Rick was already there. He didn't look at me. Legal was present, not our usual counsel. This time, 2 unfamiliar faces, one with a notepad, one with a recorder, no how are you, no offer of water. They handed me a binder, thick, too thick, inside pages, screenshots, email chains, security logs, photos, and one still image that made my mouth go dry. Rick holding my underwear, the office clock behind him reading 7:34 p.m., the flowers visible on a desk nearby, my face half turned, laughing, no context, just fact. I blinked, swallowed, my voice cracked. This is all out of context. It was just a joke. I didn't think. No one smiled. Not one expression moved. We'll need a formal statement, one of the attorneys said, and a signed acknowledgement of the interim leave terms. Interim leave. I nodded, dazed, signed where they told me, didn't even read most of it. Drove home early. The world outside the car window blurred like a dream slipping out of reach. When I pulled into the driveway, something felt wrong. No porch light. No packages. The smart lock blinked red. I tried again, still red. I called Mark again. Straight to voicemail, then I saw it. A fireproof envelope tucked into the corner of the porch bench. My name on it in black ink. No return address. Just that. My name. I opened it with shaking hands. Inside, documents. Neatly organized. Divorce petition. Inventory of jointly held assets. Copies of financial transfers. A note from his attorney. Blank signature lines for me. No accusations. No rant. Just clean, irreversible action. He wasn't coming back to fight. He had already finished. The chairs were already filled when I walked in. Rick sat at the far end of the conference table, arms crossed, lips tight. His blazer hung off the back of his chair like it wanted no part of him. Next to him sat one of the company's external attorneys, a woman I'd never seen before. Face unreadable, eyes sharp as glass. Her fingers hovered above a legal pad, pen motionless, as if waiting for something to bleed. I hesitated at the threshold just long enough for the HR director to glance up. "Close the door behind you." I did. The blinds were already drawn, the overhead lights too bright, too sterile. I took the empty seat across from Rick. No one greeted me. No one asked how I was doing. There wasn't even water on the table, just the binder. Black, thick, my name labeled across the tab in clear print. The HR director slid it toward me. "We'll be reviewing these materials together. You'll have an opportunity to respond at the end." I opened it and felt my breath catch. The first page wasn't words. It was a photo, a still frame from a phone camera, or maybe a screen grab. Rick, seated at what looked like a team event, smiling mid-drink. My undergarment, the pair, folded neatly beside his glass, half tucked under a napkin. The timestamp was recent, just weeks old. I flipped the page. Another photo. Me, Rick, standing too close, my posture too relaxed, his hand at my lower back. Then the emails. Dozens of them. Playful. Casual. Not professional, the HR director said aloud. Several had been forwarded, annotated, highlighted with dates and internal comments. "See pattern," one said. "Power imbalance," in another. Then the complaints. From women I hadn't even known were watching. Junior staff, one from a former intern, each one detailing inappropriate jokes, boundaryless comments, strange gifts left in desk drawers. No one had reported formally until now. Until me, my name showed up in their statements, not just as Rick's peer, but as a participant. "Others noted your laughter," the HR director said, voice flat. "Your visible comfort during incidents they found disturbing." I swallowed hard. "It was a joke," I whispered. "I didn't think—" "Exactly," the attorney said. I looked at Rick. His face had gone chalk white. He didn't look powerful anymore. He looked cornered. But they weren't looking at him, they were looking at me. The binder didn't lie. It didn't soften. It didn't care if I meant to harm anyone. It simply showed what was seen over and over again. And suddenly, all those harmless moments weren't harmless anymore. They were documentation. And now? Now they were consequences. They brought him in through the side door. Mark. Not the main entrance. Not through the lobby where employees would see him and start whispering again. No. This was quiet, prearranged, like they were afraid of what might happen if too many people watched. He looked like he always did, not disheveled, not vengeful, just composed. Crisp dress shirt, no tie, wedding band gone, eyes sharp but not angry. He didn't even look at me as he walked past. I sat at the far end of the table, surrounded by HR, legal, 2 senior VPs, and our compliance officer. The air was dense, too many bodies, too few breaths. They gave him a water bottle. He didn't open it. When they asked his name for the record, he answered without hesitation. Then came the questions. "When did you enter the office that evening?" 7:34 p.m. "What did you witness?" He looked up, straight ahead. Not at me, not at Rick. Just past us. My wife's supervisor holding her underwear. She was laughing. A pause. The compliance officer asked softly, "Did you confront anyone?" "No." "Why not?" He blinked once. "I had nothing to say." "And the flowers?" He nodded. "White gardenias, her favorite. She'd said she was having an awful day. I thought it might help." Someone cleared their throat. "And when you left, was it your intention to report misconduct?" Mark looked down then, only for a moment, then back up. "No, at that moment I was still trying to convince myself it was nothing." "And later?" He nodded slowly. "I started remembering things. Patterns, comments she'd repeated to me, things she used to laugh off, the gift from him last year, the late hours, the discomfort she'd sometimes describe and then dismiss." He leaned forward, voice steady. "I didn't want to believe it. I chose not to believe it until I saw it." Silence. Then the final question. "Why didn't you speak to her? Ask for an explanation?" Mark turned his head then, just slightly. Not enough to meet my eyes, but enough that I felt it. Because she laughed. No anger, no tremble, just that. The silence after was unbearable. No one shuffled papers, no one typed. I heard the buzz of the ceiling lights and the faint click of the HVAC, and I realized then that no report, no lawsuit, no reprimand would ever sting more than that line. Because it wasn't said with bitterness. It was said like a closing door, quiet, certain, final. HR sent me home that same afternoon. Administrative leave pending resolution, they called it. No apology, no anger, just process. Quiet, clinical exile. My badge was disabled by 3 p.m. By 3:10, Rick was escorted out. No box of belongings, no handshakes, just a silent walk to the elevator with 2 security staff at his sides. He didn't look at anyone, not even me. Word spread like smoke. By the end of the day, I was off every group chat, every Slack channel. My email account was locked before I reached my car. I sat in the driver's seat, stunned, gripping the wheel like it might explain something. But there was nothing to say, nothing I could say. The call from the ethics board came the next morning. Formal investigation. You may be contacted for additional statements. That was all. No accusations. Just structure. Like gears turning. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat at the kitchen table with a mug of coffee, gone cold, staring at the divorce papers Mark had left me in that envelope. They were still there, untouched, waiting like they knew this was coming. Every page in order. Initialed where needed. Blank lines for me to sign. No demands, no venom. Just exit. I stared at my phone for hours before I finally texted him. I never thought it would go this far. I watched the typing bubble flicker once and then stop. Then his message came in. It didn't go anywhere. It stayed exactly where you left it. I read it twice, then a third time. And it hit harder than anything else had. Because he was right. He hadn't dragged it out. He hadn't chased chaos. He simply picked up what I discarded and walked away. And somehow, in all my trying to stay upright, to pretend it wasn't that bad, I had forgotten that silence isn't retreat. Sometimes it's just a man who's done explaining why he shouldn't be humiliated for loving you. That night, I signed the papers. Every page. No edits, no delays, no contest. He didn't need revenge. He had clarity. And that left nothing left to fight for. It was raining the day I went back. That soft kind of rain that makes everything look gentler than it really is. I parked across the street from the florist, same storefront, same chipped sign swinging in the wind, a little older, like we all were. I stepped inside and the scent hit me instantly. Warm, green, sweet with soil, memories stuck to the air. The owner looked up from behind the counter, squinting for a moment. Then her face lit up. "You're the gardenia man?" I almost laughed. But instead, I just smiled and said, "Not today." She raised an eyebrow, waiting. "I'm thinking something with thorns this time." Her smile faded, not out of offense, more like understanding. She nodded slowly, disappeared into the back. When she returned, she held a bouquet of dusky roses, small white heather, sprigs of something sharp and dark green. "Balance," she said quietly. "Beautiful, but not soft." I paid in cash. As I stepped back into the rain, bouquet tucked under one arm, I passed the courthouse bulletin board by habit, something Mark and I used to glance at during walks. Local updates, marriages, hearings. Today, 2 names stood out, Rick's and mine. Case, employment misconduct. Hearing date, pending. My stomach didn't twist. My hands didn't shake. I just stood there for a moment reading it, then looking away. No headlines, no crowds. Just a quiet square paper with letters and consequences pressed into them. I kept walking. No need to stay. No urge to watch it unfold. The truth didn't need me anymore. It had roots now, and thorns. And while I'd once laughed to avoid the weight of what I knew, I didn't laugh anymore. 'Cause some stories don't need a punchline. They need a verdict.